Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Dan Griffin and I'm Support Revolution's Head of Marketing, and I'm going to be online today with you to introduce our speakers and to answer or forward any of your questions to them. But just some housekeeping points before we begin. You'll notice that we have muted everybody automatically, and that's to ensure that we have minimal noise disruption throughout the whole webinar. But do notice there is a text chat box on your screen that you can use to send me messages. So I will answer those directly if I can, or I'll forward those on to our speakers if you have any questions you'd like answered in this session. You'll also find in that window we've placed a few resources for you to download as well. One's a white paper that accompanies today's session. It gives all the details of what we're going to be covering today, and I highly recommend downloading it for future reference. The other download is a fact book that gives you information on third-party support and Support Revolution specifically. It outlines the pros and cons of why you would consider moving from Oracle or SAP support to us, and obviously I'd recommend downloading that as well. Our subject today is ERP upgrade options, or more specifically, what are your ERP upgrade options in the age of cloud? Now, this subject has never been more important to organizations, given the speed of change in the world, the pressures of remaining competitive, and the ongoing demands of vendors to upgrade by their deadlines or risk everything. Many organizations we speak to, though, aren't convinced by this. They're skeptical of vendors like Oracle and SAP and worry that they're going to be forced into decisions that are good for the vendor, but not for themselves. And a quick internet search doesn't help much either. Different media outlets, analysts, and consultants are all publishing conflicting information, which leads many organizations just like yours to take a wait and see approach to ERP upgrades. But is that really the right thing to do? That's why we've asked our Chief Information Officer, Kiran Gorajala, and one of our senior consultants, Ben Banton, onto this webinar to discuss not only the ERP upgrade market, but also what are the options actually available to organizations like yours and each option's pros and cons. Kiran's been with Support Revolution since 2015 and leads his team to ensure our support services exceed our customers' expectations every time. He's joined us with over 20 years of implementation, program management, and strategic experience from organizations such as Oracle and Deloitte, and has worked with many organizations worldwide with decisions like their ERP upgrade strategy. Ben, meanwhile, has over 13 years experience as a senior consultant, working with organizations on their Oracle software implementations, customizations, and usage. He's got a wide range of expertise in ERP, but is also our in-house expert on our Trend micro security solution and all things ERP security. So you're in good hands with both of these people. So with that, I'll pass you on to them both to start the webinar and discover what your ERP upgrade options really are in the age of cloud. Kiran.
Thank you, Dan. So first of all, let's start off by just taking a look at the diagram in front of us. And I'm hoping this looks quite familiar, as this is the ERP upgrade cycle that pretty much any organization would go through. And I'm just going to talk you through this cycle. You'll probably also see through the webinar, we'll keep coming back and referring to this cycle as well as part of our discussion. So if we start at the top, the top, you buy the software first, which is what you would do when you purchase a license. So you've bought a product, you've got the license to use that product. But then as well as that, in order to resolve any issues, you would also need support for that product. So you obviously have some support costs that you're paying to that vendor in order to receive that support. So what does the vendor do? The vendor then takes that money that you're paying for that support and maintenance and invests it. But do they invest it into the product that you're currently being supported on, or does it go into the newer product? It generally goes into the newer products, because that's their focus. They want to be getting you to a newer release, which I'll come on to. So having invested that money into that newer product, they then want to launch that new product. And then the time will come where that will then be their focus for support as well. And the vendor will come to you and say, I'm sorry, but there is a deadline now, and I'm not supporting your current version anymore. What do you do in that situation? So if you have an issue and the vendor's saying they won't fix it for you because you're out of support, the option available to you is they're going to say to you, you would have to upgrade. And then you're back into that cycle. So you upgrade, but then again, you're back into support. And then again, the vendor is working on the next release. So it's an endless cycle that goes round and round. So the cycle seems to make sense, doesn't it? You pay the vendor, then they look after you, but it isn't really the story here. The vendor likes to pretend that third-party support doesn't exist, but they're the only real option to support you. So then this allows them to justify high support costs, which is their main profit center. They claim to use this to provide top quality support and invest in innovations for your product, but this isn't the case. How many upgrades have organizations like yourselves done and seen that that feature is the one that they always needed, or a suite of enhancements that they've been waiting for? No, it's pretty much use case specific. Oracle and SAP support have a long way to go to be called premium support as well, because what they offer is really self-service type support. Okay, they're relying on you researching, and there is also no SLA around this their service at all. So you have no guarantee when your incident or issue is going to be resolved. So that is not really great, based on what you're paying for that service as well. And if I couple in the innovations I've just talked about, how much of the innovations and functionality, new functionality is being introduced into these new upgrades as well. So all of this money isn't really being invested into your upgrade. It's actually being invested into the new products. So it leads us on to the main discussion of this webinar, with SAP telling their customers they have to upgrade by 2025, and you also have Oracle pushing something similar. Will you just simply sign up to the latest product cycle, or do you have more options available to you at all? So there are a number of options, and we're going to use this webinar to talk about 3 of those options. Okay. So the first option, which is exactly what your vendor wants you to do, and that's upgrade your software. So you'll recognize the diagram that we've just talked through, and that is the upgrade cycle I've just talked you through, where you purchased a product, you're expecting support, the vendor's focused on the new product, and eventually you're going to be out of support. So what are your options available here? The vendor says, okay, you need to upgrade. Okay, and they keep pushing you around and around that cycle. But why would you upgrade to the latest version? What are the reasons for upgrading at all? The main one from an organization perspective is, if you're upgrading, you're expecting better features, more enhancements, better functionality, more solutions out of that upgrade that you're not receiving at the moment. But also, in simple terms, if I've just mentioned that you would potentially be out of support if you didn't have the upgrade. So obviously, if you need a fix or a bug fix of some sort, that would be available in the upgraded version. But why should that be a reason to upgrade? You must always ask yourselves. The disadvantage is it's not just simply pushing a button to upgrade, okay, and then it's done in a matter of hours or days. There is a lot of effort, and it's mainly the people side. So yes, an upgrade means you've already got the configuration, you've already got the data, and you're just simply moving to a higher version. But that requires people. You need people to manage this as a project. You need people to review what functionality you're going to switch on, review has any functionality gone away, produce testing plans, performance testing, and that doesn't take weeks, that's generally months. So it's quite a big impact to businesses, and can be disruptive because it can take away people from their day-to-day jobs as well. And on top of that, you've got to think about related software and hardware that's linked to this upgrade. Do you have to make any changes in that area, which also means there's a cost. And essentially, it comes down to, there's an impact to people, time, and money. So is this option right for you? I mean, upgrades can be tempting, because obviously with an upgrade, you're on the latest features, you don't want to be left behind, but you've always got to take a step back and ask yourself, okay, a number of questions to determine, is this really right for you? And questions that we would generally ask our customers is, who does this upgrade benefit? Is it you, or is it really the vendor? Okay, who's pushing you to do this upgrade? Okay, and in a majority of the cases, it's generally the vendor, because it's to do with support. Okay, they're not pushing you because there's a whole suite of new functionality that's available. So therefore, is it adding value? Again, is it being dictated by the vendor or yourself? Is it really necessary? And does it fit your roadmap? Because your roadmap should be telling you what you want your ERP system to be doing over the next few years. And are you getting that benefit now at this time? So is upgrading an option, and who is it being run by? Is it being run by the vendor, or is it being run by yourself?
So what is the nature of upgrading these days provided by the ERP vendors? Well, as we have mentioned, the bulk of development these days is being undertaken for their cloud products. It's their key growth area, and that makes sense for them. However, the cloud products are being developed under a new architecture and often forces a complete change in how they are being developed, which means that the upgrades, the new features, the new enhancements that are being developed for them are not always compatible with the legacy on-premise release. So innovation and new features are not being delivered to these legacy platforms, and support is shifting more towards ensuring that functionality and compatibility remain available for your existing platform, and also to help supply tools to allow you to move on to a cloud platform in the future. This is much less value for money than what you may have been receiving in previous years, even ignoring the cost of doing the upgrade to the latest version. And if you did want to move to the cloud system, then a migration to them, it can be quite complex. Due to the nature of the cloud platform being re-engineered from the ground up, a migration to them often requires your existing workflow, your existing system to be rebuilt, because there are very few organizations out here who don't have some form of customization or some form of integration with other systems that require rewriting. And equally, it's often only a data migration. You still have to develop your own workflow and your own processes back inside the cloud render. However, the vendors are very keen on getting organizations to move to the cloud system and are applying pressure in subtle ways, such as the SAP end of support date for their legacy platform has been publicized, and Oracle themselves are announced that their on-premise ERP system has been made part of the Oracle Applications Unlimited program, which means they're going to guarantee support until 2030. However, as mentioned, it will not receive that much in the way of innovation. They are only guaranteeing that it will continue to function and continue to be developed. So why would you upgrade to a software as a service ERP system on top of with one of the vendors? Well, the key one that will be given to you is cost and the ease of use. Software updates are automated. You'll be forced to upgrade, unfortunately, in some degrees, because there will be a maintenance window that you'll have to declare, and this will happen on a weekly basis. But you will always be on the latest version, for better or for worse. By forcing you to upgrade, this may mean that your users may experience disruption due to changes in the software appearance or functionality. And the degree to which you can test these is limited unless you pay extra cloud subscriptions. On the plus side, security is taken care of. It's no longer your responsibility, and neither is maintaining the infrastructure to support the service. Those are provided by the cloud vendor, and there'll be a SLA associated with those to keep your access. And again, this is how the vendor is applying these existing support costs to build up their cloud implementation. Now to some of the downsides. As mentioned, you don't have control over the updates or the pricing or the support model that you may get with it. There is generally a one solution fits all. While there's a lower cost to you in terms of running the applications in your own data center, as you are no longer doing so, the actual total cost of ownership can be higher, both for the disruption from changing to working practices and from updates and from moving to the cloud solution in the first place, and also because often licensing is on a different metric, where you may have a server supporting a large number of users at a very low usage rate, meaning you do not need that many CPU licenses. On a cloud solution, you will often be charged per user per month, and this cost can rack up quickly, especially for those organizations which provide wide access to their ERP systems. There's limited customization ability in the cloud. Depending on the exact solution that's being implemented, you may not have the ability to get to the point where you can add your own customizations to integrate with external systems, or you may be forced to purchase another cloud product from the vendor to support the integration to another solution. So is this option right for you? It's difficult for us to say. We cannot make this decision for you. Every organization's circumstances will be different. But we can give you some things to look at. One, look at what features are available in the cloud, not merely what features are indicated as being present in the cloud system, which are actually fully implemented and fully detailed in the cloud systems. As often they may be coming soon or in the roadmap, and that is no guarantee that they will be available when you need to use them. Check the customization ability within the cloud solution you're looking at. Check that any process you have which are more unusual or have been developed in-house over a number of years can be ported across, or that replacements are able to be created within a reasonable time frame and with a reasonable cost. And also investigate the lock-in elements of the cloud solution. There are migration tools that will make it very easy for you to move to the cloud platform. However, by their own nature, the vendors are not going to be spending money developing tools to allow you to move away from their cloud platform. So pulling data out pulling your system away from the cloud platform will often result in you getting a very basic set of data, and then you'll have to create a new system from scratch again. And that has to be considered because you will not have control over your pricing or timelines if they decide to end the cloud product or to force another migration within there. So what other options are available? Well, Kiran will now take you through another.
Thanks, Ben. So yes, so option one was about upgrading. Okay, so you're with an existing vendor and you upgrade with that same vendor. Option two is moving away from your vendor. So in simple terms, let's say you're with Oracle, you've been with them. Option one, you could have upgraded with Oracle, through their various versions. Option two here, you might choose SAP. Okay, but the key thing here is, again, if you look at the diagram that we've been referencing, it's the same loop, but the only thing that's different is the platform. So instead of Oracle, it's SAP, but you've still got the same challenges and the same process that's going on. So let's explore, okay, then, first of all, why would you switch to another vendor? Most organizations stick with the same ERP solution for long periods of time, often decades, and as their needs change, their chosen solution can become less appropriate. Switching solutions provides a unique opportunity to select based on your organization's current needs. Okay, so what you may have bought many, many years ago may be fit for purpose then, but is it fit for purpose now because you've acquired or you've consolidated, you've changed industry, you've changed business? Is it all still applicable with your ERP? But switching platforms is far from simple. Okay, moving from one solution to another can take years and takes a lot of time and energy to complete, and a lot of resources as well. And ultimately, the amount spent on the process may often neutralize any potential savings or advantages that you may gain. So no matter how frustrated you may be with your current ERP solution, the decision to switch can't be taken lightly. And if I go back, that ERP has been around for a long, long period of time. You've used it for, let's say, 10 years. Is it fit for purpose for another 10 years? Do you really have to make that change? Because let's look at the benefits and the disadvantages to support this. So the benefits are, as I mentioned earlier, you've got the ability now to select another vendor based on what you need at this point in time. Okay, but you must also think, okay, is it going to support me for the next 5 to 10 years, realistically 10 years, because you don't really want to be changing another vendor in another 5 years after spending the amount of money to do this project. But also in parallel to that, you've also got to be looking at the total cost of ownership. So the benefit that you could potentially achieve from moving away from one vendor to another is obviously saving some money around that. However, the disadvantages are, in saving that money, you're probably saving money around the licenses and support costs. But what you have to remember is there is a significant cost in doing the project. So from an upgrade perspective, you're moving from a base configuration with data to the same vendor, okay, but the latest version, with an implementation moving to, sorry, if I just correct myself, moving from to another vendor is effectively a re-implementation. So you're starting again, you're building everything from scratch, and also migrating the data from the old system to the new system. So all of that is quite complex. You know, it requires quite a lot of development, potentially a lot of resources, both on the project management side, business resources, consultants, maybe from the vendor or a partner organization from internally, and it will be a longer project than an upgrade project, and therefore can be disruptive to the business because you're taking people away from the day-to-day operations, and the timeline, you know, can take very long. So all of this needs to be considered in making that decision, you know, to switching to another vendor. So, you know, to help you decide whether this option is right for you or not. And the question we ask is, you know, to help you decide is it going to improve your organization? Because we wouldn't recommend it unless it brings strategic improvement to your organization. If there's no strategic improvement, then you're just opting into another upgrade cycle or SaaS product with basically the same pros and cons that we've just gone through. But if there is strategic improvement, then consider it. But always bear in mind, you know, that the length of time, the complexity of that project, is it worth it based on the returns that you're going to get, and when are you going to get those returns? So at this point, this is where a vendor would typically stop talking, in the sense that there's only two options available to you, and those are your only two options, which are you're either able to upgrade to the latest version of product with the current vendor that you are with, or if that's not satisfactory, then switch to one of their competitors. And there's no other third option, but that isn't true. Okay, the reality is that a lot of organizations don't want to upgrade, you know, or they don't want to move to another vendor. They're happy with where they are, and they don't want to upgrade for the sake of it. They don't want to obviously pay for those costs to move to another vendor just to stay in support. So there has to be another way. The data for this is also backed up by a recent survey done by in 2019 by the annual UK and Ireland SAP user group. So the member survey questioned 467 organisations and found that 58% of them do not intend to upgrade to S4HANA in the next 2 years, while 27% say they will not upgrade for the next 3 years. Those are massive figures because those are companies that are with SAP and SAP want them to move to S/4HANA by 2025. And those statistics are suggesting that actually those organizations definitely don't want to do that just yet. Okay, so there is another option. And that option is sticking with your current version, okay? And there isn't an issue with this. And with this option, you've effectively, you're breaking that upgrade cycle, or an alternative is actually just to pause the upgrade cycle, because you don't have to just say, I'm never going to upgrade at all. You can just pause it, okay, move to a third party or another third party support vendor provider for a period of time while you're trying to make that decision of what to do with your future strategy, okay? And then invest what you're saving over that period of time to deliver your future strategy. So, sounds too good to be true. Can you do that? Of course you can. But it's just that organizations don't realize that they don't have to do what vendors are telling them to do. There is this third option. And the maturity of modern ERP solutions means the upheaval and expense of upgrading simply isn't worth it for the minor tweaks and innovations that you receive. While other software products are like mobile phones, with each generation producing new features, faster hardware, most ERP systems are akin to landlines, which are pretty much the same as they were 10 years ago. Nothing's really changed. Mobile phones, you get new handsets and then you get new products, software versions, functionality. Don't get that all the time with ERP. Sticking with your current ERP version avoids the business disruption as well and costs associated with upgrades, including all the testing we talked about, implementation, retraining, just to name a few. It also means continuing with a trusted and stable ERP environment that is already meeting the needs of your organization. Okay, you've not had any problems with it, so why change it? What is that reason to change it? Okay, and you have to remember, it's not you that's making that decision to change it in this scenario, it's actually the vendor, because the vendor has changed the deadline or put a deadline, to support, saying that at this point, there's no more support for the version that you're on. So you have to therefore upgrade or do something about it if you want to stay supported. But if you're happy and the product works, you don't have to do that, okay? You can leave your software unsupported because you can move to third-party support and maintenance. So you can either choose to support the product yourself, which is an option, but then obviously you'll need to make sure that you've got the resources with those skills to provide that support, or you can work with a third-party support provider such as ourselves. And it is a legal alternative, and you'll always get support for the older versions of Oracle and SAP for as long as you want. There is no deadlines at all, and that's the great thing about it. So it just breaks that upgrade cycle totally. And it's not just about cost saving, it's also about the quality of service. So we talked about earlier in the webinar, is the big vendors really offering a premier service? Can they be called a premier vendor? Because the support style of service is generally self-service. And again, there's no SLA. You have no guarantee when your issue is going to be resolved. That should be a key part of support. In third-party support and maintenance, you're guaranteed response and resolution, a resolution to your issue. So why use third-party support then? So the benefits of working with third-party support through Support Revolution is, we talked earlier, first of all, by doing an upgrade and doing a re-implementation, you're changing processes, you're changing systems. It means, you're disrupting the organization because of doing that and involving people to deliver that project. But by leaving it as it is, there is no disruption, so everything remains unchanged. You're using a stable system. And in that time that you're being supported, you're saving between 50 to 90% of your current support costs. Okay, so you're getting what you need to be supported, and you're making a saving. So there's a lot of, there's two big wins there. You're not influenced by the vendor upgrade. You're getting a better support quality because you're guaranteed SLAs, you're guaranteed a fix, you're guaranteed to get to know a core set of team members as well who will work on your fixes as well. There is a proactive partnership from a support perspective between both organizations, and also from a security perspective, we have a far more superior security patching process as well. On the disadvantages, the only real disadvantage is the fact that you don't have access to regular upgrades. So you will have access to an upgrade at a point in time, but if you're an organization that wants to upgrade every year to the latest, then this is not the option. Now, having chosen this option, be aware of the scare tactics that the vendors will use with you, which we're experienced with and we've heard over time through organizations that have moved over. And some of these scare tactics that we've heard, and you'll hear as well from them, will be, you will be charged backdated support costs if you go back to them. That's not necessarily true, okay? And we will work with you to help you around that. And anyway, if you do go back to them, you're actually going back to a newer release. So it's a newer implementation and a newer product, okay? So it's a different support model in that scenario. They'll say that you don't have access to the source code in support. We have access to 99.9% of the source code. Okay, and third-party support and maintenance can provide a fix for any issue or incident that you may have. And there's various ways of providing a fix, which is covered in a separate webinar that we have as well. They'll talk about high risk of an audit. So moving to third-party support and maintenance will automatically trigger an audit. No, that's not necessarily true. You will normally be scheduled in for an audit by Oracle, and that's generally how audits work. There is no trigger that says by moving away from us, you're automatically going to have an audit. And during audits, we also provide support to our customers and organizations to ensure that they are compliant anyway. One big thing that they will always mention is, oh, it's risky to move away from us because you're not going to get our vendor security patches. And also, what about legislation patches? You run payroll, how are you going to get your payroll patches? Now, that's not true either. So with us and with third-party support and maintenance, you will get your legislation patches, just like the vendors release it. We, in fact, release them a lot quicker. They're more specific to your systems and solutions because they're tailored to your customizations. The vendors do not take into consideration your customizations because we actually support your customizations. And also our security patching is a lot more superior, which Ben will cover in the next slide. And finally, they'll also say, oh, well, we're the vendor, okay? If you move away from us, you're not going to get the best support from us at all. But actually, that's not true because, as I mentioned earlier, they don't offer an SLA. So how are you getting the best support from them? Because they can't guarantee a fixed time. Whereas moving to third-party support maintenance, you're guaranteed a fixed time. Just hand to Ben on the security patching.
So yes, as Kiran mentioned, we have our own solution for security patching. But before we go into the details of that, I'm just going to walk you through what is probably quite familiar to you of the traditional process of security patching that you will be going through on a regular basis. So SAP release security patches on a monthly basis, and Oracle release a cumulative patch update every 3 months. And in both cases, those are large bundle patch sets, which contain many fixes to many different security vulnerabilities in the software. So applying these has to be taken very cautiously, and it can be a lengthy process. You'll have to apply them to a low environment, check that they can be applied successfully. You'll have to apply them to a pre-production environment to check they will not impact any of your existing processes and your users can still use the software in the same way before even looking at attempting to apply them into production. This can be months, and you can end up being behind by 1 or 2 months, or even multiple of the critical patch updates. This leads to periods of vulnerability. By releasing the security patch, these critical patch updates, they're releasing details of these to the outside world, and as many products can be reverse engineered to a degree, the attackers will gain access to the knowledge of these. This will both make, if you are not patched up to date on the current version, you'll experience vulnerabilities from that. And if you're using an older piece of software that perhaps the vendor did not patch because it was out of support or coming near to out of support, or wasn't tested against, then a 0-day may be created, which will require immediate patching. And this has happened with both Oracle and Microsoft in recent years with WebLogic patches or with the Bluekeep vulnerability, which was used to deliver ransomware to large organizations. As mentioned, the patching is only to products in support and only the products that are tested. But additionally, the vulnerabilities these days, all organizations have a bug bounty process where they will pay out if a bug is discovered by a third party. These are attackers which are not malicious, and those details are only shared with the vendor. So while it is a security vulnerability, it is not one which is exploitable by anyone. Hence, it is not something to be concerned of. However, you are still being forced to go through a patching process to deliver it. The solution we look at is virtual patching via Trend Micro Deep Security. This is an enhanced web application firewall and intrusion prevention system for your systems. It's delivered by a small agent which runs on each of the systems to be protected. This runs as part of the OS and inspects all network traffic inside and outside of it. The patches themselves are delivered by intrusion protection rules. Each of those rules are specific to vulnerabilities or may contain heuristics to be able to protect against a class of vulnerabilities. The key point about that is the rules are deployed onto the system and not onto the actual software. There's no downtime for your software by applying these rules. And in fact, the option of deployment of the rule itself can be deployed into detection-only mode, in which case you'll detect if a vulnerability is trying to be exploited, but you still won't have risk any downtime in case of error in the actual rule, which would impact your business. Some rules do have tuning, which is part of the deployment process, which is why you would deploy them into detection-only to start with. These are very lightweight. There's no real impact on server performance, and the amount of management required to perform these is minimal. The system itself will run recommendation scans on your environment and will automatically flag up if a new rule has been delivered by Trend, which is on a weekly basis, traditionally or out of bounds. They will deliver them within hours of the Oracle or SAP vulnerability being announced. And it can be deployed automatically into detection mode, so you are immediately protected before you've even had a chance to read the critical patch update from Oracle or the SAP notes from SAP. So this is our solution for security patching. Some of the other elements are around, that Kiran mentioned as scare tactics, are around indicating that by moving to third-party support, you're going to be static and you're going to be stuck falling behind. And this is not true either. It doesn't mean you have to miss out on taking advantage of new innovations in the IT world. So one thing we have worked with many of our customers with is helping them move from an on-premise environment to a cloud or a hybrid model, and I'll go into more details on that shortly. However, we can go back and contact the vendor. As mentioned, it does not prevent you from buying additional licenses and modules for your software, and you can keep on taking advantage of the existing software you've got and enhancing it as needed. We will help create additional customizations for your software if required, or we can just guide you through the process of developing your own in-house skills to produce these. And equally, we can provide information on how you can use add-ons from open source software to elements that you would integrate into Windows or onto your client machines that will help enhance your functionality of your existing system. So, moving on to cloud migration. One of the key drivers of moving to software as a service is cost and ease of use. Vendors love to indicate that, the ERP vendors love to indicate that it simplifies your environment and you don't have to worry about managing your infrastructure. You can downsize your data centers and you can get rid of legacy hardware. You do not need to move to software as a service in order to take advantage of this. Both Amazon and Azure are established cloud platforms, and in fact are rated more highly than the ERP vendors' platforms in terms of all the metrics associated with cloud, such as reliability, security, and total cost of ownership. So how can we help with this? Well, we've helped some of our customers move their existing software onto a cloud environment. As part of the transition process, we'll talk you through if you have plans for that, and ensure that you have the software available to help you move into the cloud environment, including any platform migrations. And then we can help you provide savings on your total cost of ownership by helping you take advantage of best practices in the cloud environment. We can help you automate scripts to shut down test and development environments when they're not in use. We can help you take advantage of monitoring tools that are built into these cloud environments that will provide much faster reporting on any issues involved with your software or load within the systems if in case scaling up or scaling down is required. At the end of the day, you have a system that works and you want to keep on using that system, and we can help you move away from your data center, which may be something that you are paying a large cost for, or may simply be becoming obsolete due to hardware or OS maintenance costs, into a cloud system. So ultimately, is third-party support right for you? Well, there's an assumption that organizations will continue to remain on the upgrade treadmill, and hopefully this webinar has helped show that there are other options, not merely moving to another vendor, but also sticking with what you've got. And that should be the default unless there's a good reason to move. Vendors are prioritizing their cloud systems, and on-premise systems are getting much less development and innovation features as a result of this. So you're paying more and you're getting less. If you do upgrade to the last version, that is to the version that is currently supported on-premise, there's often a final date associated with it where you know that there'll be another upgrade process down the line, and yet you may be forced to upgrade because of support timelines. If you do move to a cloud system supported by supplied by one of the vendors, you may face lock-in, or you may face lock-in, which would mean that migrating away from it may be costly, and the actual process of moving to that cloud system is a complex project in itself, almost a re-implementation in some cases. Third-party support, on the other hand, it'll help keep your existing system running in a secure manner, probably more secure than you're running it currently, and will help increase the speed that the vulnerabilities that are discovered and are out there in the wild and being exploited will be protected against. At the same time, we can help you make more savings than just the cost than the savings on support costs by moving to us, by helping you rationalize your estate down and by taking advantage of the innovations that have come out in cloud solutions. If there's a decision to move later on to a full software as a service model or to another vendor, by using that's fine. And by using us in the meantime, you're saving money and allowing you yourselves to be able to concentrate on that without having to keep on the upgrade treadmill. So I'll leave it over to Dan to wrap up, and thank you for your time from my perspective.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Kiran, for that incredibly interesting session on what the options are. To follow on from your final recommendation, Ben, that every organisation should be investigating what cost savings third-party support can provide, as well as all the other benefits that we can offer, we have put together a free online savings calculator for you. By following the link that's on the screen, you can quickly discover just how much you could save by switching to Support Revolution, not to mention, as I've already said, the other benefits we've already been discussing today. It takes only a few minutes to fill in, although you do need to know roughly how much you are currently spending on your ERP support to complete it fully. Once you've done this, a savings calculation will be instantly emailed to you, and we can quickly start to discuss whether third-party support is the right choice for your organisation at this time. If you do want a more in-depth conversation on any of the subjects that we've raised today, you can contact us via phone or email using the details on the screen now. And finally, thanks to everyone who has signed in today to listen to our speakers, and thanks once again to both Kiran and Ben for your time. Unfortunately, we are out of time in this session, so any questions that have been sent in to us today, we'll answer separately via email in the next 24 hours. We do promise to come back to you. Also, remember, you will be sent a recording of this webinar to your email address, and we recommend downloading the accompanying white papers and the fact sheet in the system window to the left-hand side. We hope you have a great day. Thanks very much again, and goodbye.